What is 2023 going to look like for us as a church? Now, copies of the spending plan have been available for you at the back of the sanctuary. And so we're not going to go we're going to go super granular on this, but we wanted to give you a snapshot of what this budget looks like. As Doris said, it's going to be a little smaller than it was in 2022, and where those changes are going to be made. So as you can see from there, the staffing cost is about 98%. That reduces the staffing complement by about 10 hours in the office per week. The same is true for facilities and administration. A lot we've trimmed where we could there, and the main area that is going to see decrease is in mission programs, the things that we do to fulfill our vision to be our mission to find life in Christ here as a church. Now, that's not the whole story. The reality is that there's a sense of urgency that goes along with this, because as Doris said, we were able to absorb increased costs for maintaining this beautiful building that we have through the savings that we generated over a couple years of vacancy, which means that our current reserve for building repairs is sitting at 13% of where it was when I first arrived here 2 years ago. And so we are in a place where we no longer have much in the way of reserve fund to simply fall back on. As things begin to cost more, the challenge of maintaining a building means that we functionally have a maintenance mortgage as a church, that we need to adapt and adopt new ways of practicing our stewardship and care of this building that is so well used, and serves the community well. The second piece is simply highlights here that we can't simply trust that the endowment fund is going to be able to meet the cost. Not only is that not what it's intended for or what it's supposed to do, but the market, as we've all seen, can be a deeply volatile and strange animal to be in bed with. That it means that so often we can face a year like this year where the market takes a significant toll. And for example, this year there's only 73% of the endowment available that was available to us in 2022, which means we can't count on that as a stable source of funding. So what we've done is we've created a budget that largely looks like and mirrors the 2022 budget, and asks for a cost of living increase from each family here at the church. We've increased the general fund ask for you from our congregation by about 5%, which is the rate of inflation today. So what is that going to mean? First of all, it means we're going to start with a foundation. It means we're going to take a look as we undergo this renovation process, as we take a look at the year that is coming up in front of us, and we're going to largely look at the year that was. What is the foundation of our ministry? Because the foundation, as Matt has pointed out, is strong. Our foundation as a church is rock solid. We are a church who worships and learns and serves and connects, that we do these things in order to find life in Christ. And that when we find life in Christ, that life in Christ will help us become known as a vibrant, welcoming community who inspires spiritual transformation. If you're wondering what that's going to mean, if the only takeaway that you hear today is this, I want you to be able to understand this. If you were part of our ministry in 2022, 2023 will look largely the same. It will look largely the same with smaller and more adaptive programs. We're going to try to inhabit the reality that we simply don't have the access to all of the staff hours that we had to do things in the same way that we did them. We're going to try to work smarter if we can't work harder. So we'll start with the foundation, which is rock solid. And then we will inventory the supplies that we have to make this renovation. Now, this is one of the challenging areas of life, because right now, a 1 hour worship service takes 17 volunteer hours to prepare. A 1 hour worship service takes 17 volunteer hours to prepare. And as the church has continued to contract and continue to endure decline over the last 20 years, the or at least since 2014, the challenge of figuring out how do we staff all of those volunteer positions and volunteer hours is a real struggle and a challenge. You saw even this year that the reality of being unable to secure people to serve on a committee like the endowment committee that's so vital to our ministry is part and parcel with where we're at as a struggling, and is one of the areas that we're struggling with in a congregation. We simply don't have the people to do ministry in the way that we have always done it, and so we need to do ministry in different ways. We need to look at strategic adaptations and understand how we can work smarter if we can't necessarily work harder. So what we're going to do is we're going to find investors. We're going to find people who have a vested interest in this place being successful at doing what it is made to do. Because if we are a people who are all about finding life in Christ, then that identity is going to carry forward a benefit and a net benefit to our city, to our community, to our neighborhoods, to our neighbors. If we can find the people who have a vested interest in us succeeding, and if we can invite them to partner with us in that succession, or in that success, then we will actually be better able to live into that reality. One of the great ways that we're already doing this is over the last 2 months, we've had the hall booked every single Saturday for either a birthday party or an anniversary party or just a group of people who wanted to get together because it was a day that ended in Y. We have been able to generate revenue with our basement at little to no volunteer cost to our already stretched resources, and generate revenue and generate excitement and generate a sense that we are doing something in our community, that our space is being used. In fact, yesterday, if you were here at the church, you learned very quickly that you had to park multiple blocks away because there was not only was there the Cubs and Scouts downstairs with hundreds of people celebrating it with Scout from across the region, but we also had a funeral up here at the same time, and it was standing room only. People were lined up along the walls being here. We are here, and we are going to find more investors as we continue to think about what the ministry, what our values are of serving and learning and connecting. We are going to keep finding more investors. We are going to keep working with groups like Project Share and the city and other people who have a vested interest in seeing Chippawa thrive. And that as we become known to be as a church for Chippawa, we are going to lean into our investors. And so we're going to start with the stuff that's easy. We're going to start with the low-hanging fruit. For example, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is how great our worship is. And so the reality, that, as Matt pointed out, is that we worship the heck out of this place. Every single week, we have an amazing and inspiring worship service that prompts and promotes the spiritual transformation that we are all about. And so one of the easiest ways that we're going to continue to lean into that is after Easter, creating what we're going to call a worship constitution. This is an idea that we've talked about for a little while, and we put it on the back burner as we did our vision and discernment work. But after Easter, there's going to be a group of people who are going to be brought together and are going to start working on what does a worship constitution look like? What does it mean? How do we shape and renovate our worship so that it not only is still great and transformative and powerful week after week after week, but that it also leans into our vision and creates a space that people can invite people into and continue to grow and develop our ministry. We're going to do the same kind of things in service and looking at ways that we can find ministries that are already doing things like feeding the hungry people who show up at our door here every single week. One of the biggest areas that we've struggled in is in our benevolence ministry. We have more people coming and asking for food vouchers than we can possibly meet the demand for. And though people give generously to this, we would have to give out vouchers in the $5 or $10 range in order to make the ministry of benevolence, the way we do it, sustainable for us as a church. And that's a $5 or $10 voucher for Foodland isn't going to really help a family that's struggling. And so the question of how do we do this is one of the easiest ways that we found is the Christian Reformed Church, one of our traditional partners in Reformed ministry, has created a breakfast program in Niagara Falls. They've created a coffee shop that 7 days a week offers breakfast to any single person who is hungry or experiencing homelessness, and they're looking for partners. They're looking for people who can not only join them in supporting this ministry, but in finding ways to partner along and walk alongside them. And so we're going to invite their pastor to come and preach here on March the 19th. We'll hear a bit more about this, but we're going to actually be taking up a special offering for the ministry of the Bridge Church around his coming, so we can continue to bless and feed the hungry people who are coming to our door every single day. We're going to do easy early. And finally, we're going to just remind ourselves why we're here. We're going to go back to the contract. This contract that we have between me and you as a congregation is a blessing, and I want to say thank you to you. I want to say thank you to you as a congregation, as people who have dug in and picked up here. There is very few things that make a church as enjoyable as a church that digs in and shows up. And you have been an incredibly easy church to fall in love with. Thank you for the ways that you have loved me and my family. Thank you for the ways that you have partnered with me in ministry, and thank you for even showing up for a crazy idea like doing an annual meeting in worship. The reality is that anytime a minister comes, a minister only ever agrees to serve a church for 1 year. And then after that, it's kind of a living conversation. And, our year came and went, and it was over. It still felt like a whirlwind. It's hard to believe that it's been almost 2 years that we've been here now, but the reality is that I could not imagine serving anywhere else. And so I want to thank you for being such an amazing congregation. Thank you for being such a wonderful community. Thank you for being the church that Matt shared about, that does all of these things so well, that has this amazing story. And I am so excited to be able to step into our next story. As we live into this, as we renovate and as we grow into this picture that we all know that this church can be, I'm excited, and I'm anticipating everything that is going to come. And so, unless there's any questions about anything we're going to do in 2023, we'll put the motion on the floor here that the 2023 spending plan be approved. And can we have a mover and seconder for that? Daniel. And seconder for that, Doris. Any discussion? Anything from chat? Nope. Any questions or comments or others about or other things about the 2023 spending plan? All right. Then all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.